Mark Knopfler had spent years chasing stories before he ever picked up a guitar in earnest. As a journalist, he learned to watch the edges of a room, to catch the small details that revealed what people tried to hide. Those habits never left him. They simply moved from newsprint into melody, shaping the songs he wrote for Dire Straits in the early 80s. By the time the band entered the studio for Love Over Gold, Knopfler already carried the feel of rainy nights and half-lit offices in his head. Raymond Chandler's novels sat on his shelves. The weary private eye who keeps walking even when the case turns sour had become part of how Knopfler measured a lyric. He wanted the same economy of language, the same sense that every sentence cost something. The result was a track that unfolds like a slow walk down an empty corridor. It is not a song that rushes. It lets the details accumulate until the listener feels the weight of the unanswered questions. The opening verse arrives without fanfare. Knopfler's voice stays low and steady, almost conversational, as if he is simply reporting what he sees. It's a mystery to me, the game commences singing. He sings, each word placed with deliberate calm. There is no drama in the delivery, only the quiet recognition that the story has already begun and the ending remains out of reach. That flat tone sets the entire piece. The listener understands at once that this is not a romance or a boast. It is an investigation that starts in the small hours and refuses to promise resolution. The arrangement supports the mood without calling attention to itself. A lone guitar traces a figure that sounds like cigarette smoke drifting toward a ceiling fan. A restrained bass line moves underneath, never pushing the tempo. When the drums finally enter, they do so with the measured tread of someone checking an empty street before crossing. Everything serves the same purpose, to keep the listener in that half-lit world where facts are scarce and motives stay hidden. Knopfler drew the title from the kind of work Chandler's characters performed, the sort that rarely appears on a business card. Private investigations, in his hands, become both a literal job and a metaphor for the way people search one another for clues they may never find. The song stretches across nearly 7 minutes, yet it never feels long. Each new detail arrives exactly when the ear is ready for it, like another light switched on in a darkened hallway. By the final verse, the listener has been drawn inside the same late-night atmosphere that first drew Knopfler to the material. The weary tone remains unbroken. The game has commenced, the mystery persists, and the narrator keeps moving forward because that is what the work requires. The details keep stacking in the same measured way, each one landing with the weight of another file folder slid across a wooden desk. The investigator moves through the night by habit now, sorting through typed reports and grainy photographs that reveal only fragments of lives already coming apart. What begins as a simple request for information soon turns into something thicker, a web of half-truths offered across restaurant tables or in the backs of taxis. Treachery arrives not as a dramatic confrontation, but in the quiet refusal to meet the eyes, in the extra pause before an answer comes. The song traces that same path without hurry. It lingers on the mechanical tasks, the stakeouts that stretch past midnight, the phone calls placed from pay booths because nothing else feels safe. Every lead uncovers another layer that was never meant to surface, and the detective learns to carry the accumulating weight without complaint. The city itself seems complicit, its alleys and hotel lobbies offering just enough shadow to keep the work moving forward. By the time the final verse arrives, the atmosphere has settled into something colder and more permanent. The question hangs there plainly, asking what the work actually leaves behind once the last report is typed and the final check is cashed. The answer comes in a single, unadorned line, delivered with the same weary steadiness that has carried every verse before it. A bottle of whiskey and a new set of lies sits at the center of the refrain, plain and unsparing. It is not offered as a dramatic flourish, but as the simple remainder after everything else has been stripped away. That image lingers because it refuses to soften. The whiskey promises a temporary quiet that never quite arrives, while the lies settle into the skin like dust that no amount of washing removes. The listener is left inside the same late room the song has built all along, where the neon from the street still flickers against the blinds, and the chair across the desk stays empty. The work does not end with resolution or redemption. It simply stops for the night, only to begin again when the next envelope arrives. Years pass, yet the envelope keeps arriving in the minds of those who listen closely. The song refuses to close its file. Some hear it as the diary of a weary detective moving through shadows with nothing but a notebook and a half-empty glass. Others read it as a quiet indictment of the business that made it, where promises fade under studio lights and the road never quite leads home. Both readings sit side by side without contradiction, each listener choosing the lens that fits the hour. The guitar does most of the talking. A few sparse notes hang in the air like cigarette smoke, never crowding the space, never pushing for attention. They simply remain, letting silence do the heavier lifting. Against that backdrop, the voice arrives low and unhurried, carrying the weight of someone who has seen too many endings and stopped expecting better ones. No flourish, no final chorus swell, just the steady tread of resignation that somehow still feels alive. Decades later, the track continues to surface in unexpected places. A late-night radio request, a film scene that needs the sound of solitary streets, a bar where the jukebox still holds older vinyl. The arrangement never dates because it never tried to belong to any single moment. It builds a room instead, and that room travels with whoever steps inside it. Live versions stretch the same material without breaking its spell. The guitar sometimes lingers longer on a single phrase, allowing the audience to feel the emptiness between notes. Covers by other artists strip the song further or dress it in new textures, yet the core remains untouched, a man alone with his thoughts and the knowledge that tomorrow brings only another case. Each new performance proves the piece can stand without its original setting and still land with the same quiet force. The power lies in what stays unsaid. No grand revelation arrives to tie the threads together. The music simply holds the listener in the room a little longer, then steps back, leaving the chair across the desk empty once more.